Hi and welcome to DCO. My name is David Copete. In this video, I'll be sharing with you this script. We start with the base form, create two different modifications, and from there we come up with this design. Let's change the size of it so you can see how it reacts to this. We can change the dimensions of the rectangles. We can also change the twist amount. So if we don't want it to be twisted, we could just go to 0. Same with this one, we could just not twist it. But the idea is that when you add modifications as you go along, it gives you the ability to change the form using these sliders. And that's what I like to do, is share with you guys parametric scripts and designs that you can use for your own projects. You can download this script on my website, copetidavid.com, and you'll be seeing the entire tutorial here. At the end, you'll also see a work exercise. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Check out my website, copetidavid.com, to download the script and for other resources. Otherwise, stay tuned for future videos, and let's jump right into this one. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is start with a circle. So we'll go here, double click, bring in a circle component. Then we'll give it a radius. So this is going to be the size. We'll go 50.5. This is also in millimeters because I'm making this as a 3D printed object, so it's going to be a little bit smaller. So now that we have the radius, I actually like to divide this by 2 because we would rather have the size of the diameter, because that's the actual true size of the overall distance for this module. Let's change this. We'll call diameter. Okay, we've got the circle. Now we're going to start creating a pattern. Now you can use any polygon, but for this one, we're going to be using a rectangle. So we'll go here to endpoints. Endpoints gives you the start and end point of the circle. When we plug it in, we have the start and end, and now we can use the start point to create our rectangle. This is the rectangle component that I'll be using, and we'll be using the start point as the plane, and now we can pick the size for our rectangle. So now let's pick the X size and the Y size. We'll do 5.50 in the X. Now, depending on whether you want this to be symmetrical or not, you would use the same slider or 2 different sliders to create a different aspect ratio. Notice though, that when you create the point and the rectangle, it's based off of this one, and it goes positive X, positive Y, which creates it not centered. What I'll do now is move this rectangle to center it, and the way I do that is using a vector XYZ. I'll be using the X value, plug it into the X value, and the Y value that went here goes into the X value. This is going to give us a vector that will allow us to move it to the center. So now I'll go here to move this rectangle, and we're going to be moving it halfway in the opposite direction. So if this vector is this length, we're going to divide it by 2 and bring in a negative component so it brings it to the center. Now we can disable preview here and see that we have positive value, and let's just keep it here at 5. Perfect. Okay, now we need to take this start point, and I can extract it also this way, so we can use this point. This one actually has 2. Now with the single point, we're going to move this up in the same amount as we extrude this. So first, let's extrude this curve, but let's do that. Let's turn it into a surface first. So boundary surfaces, for the rectangle, let's not forget that this rectangle, we can round the edges for it to look a little bit smoother. You don't necessarily have edges like this in reality. So let's go here to fillet. We will create a radius right before we create a surface. So we'll plug this in here. We'll add a slider. Maybe the max, we can leave it at 3 and use that as the input. Next, let's extrude it. So now that we've got the edges rounded off, we can extrude this surface in the Z direction, and we can pick a number. Let's go 45.5. And we've extruded that surface up by this slider amount. So this is going to be height. This is going to be fillet 1. All right, next, let's move the point, this point, up to the top. So we'll go here to move, motion in the Z direction. What point? This point. So we have 2 points, this one down here, this one up here. Now we're going to create a line segment between the start point and this end point. Let's disable the preview. Hidden wires. This way we can use this and this to twist. And this is one way of creating a rotation, is using twist. Twist actually lets you use this as the twist amount, and then we're going to pick an angle. So let me show you that. Now we can also use a series of rotations to create a similar effect, but it won't be exactly the same actually. I've noticed that. So let's plug in this extrusion into the geometry and then this one into the axis. And let's change this to degrees and bring in a value. So let's just say 45 degrees. Now that we've twisted it here, we need to disable the preview on our previous stuff because that's kind of old now. We can twist it. Let's create a custom slider. We'll go 0, less than 180, less than 360. So this is one segment that we can twist around like this. What we'll be doing is adding modifications as we go along. We started with the module going extruded up. Now we're adding this modification, which is going to be the twist form 1. Okay, we've got this. So now that we have this twisted, this module, we can array it and create a cup or a container or an outside skin or an envelope. But there are things that we can add on to and go little by little so you can see the power of this. So the next thing we'll do is create the array going all the way around. So we can have the beginning part of the script. And then from there, we can progressively make it more complex, adding modifications to create forms that are difficult to visualize or even to come up on your own. So that's what we'll be doing next, is creating the array all the way around. All right, let's create the array. So we have the base circle, which we could use a curve array, but we can also use a rotation. So if we go here to our midpoint, so if I bring in an area and plug it into the circle, it gives me the center point. with that center point, let's bring it over here. We can rotate relative to the center point of that circle, this geometry. And if we have a slider, then obviously we have to change this to degrees. Oh, there's also a different way of doing that. If we change it to radians, let's see. From degrees to radians, you don't have to do that, but I like having the slider. Well, we just don't need to do that if you right click here. All right, so now we have one value. Notice that it rotates it by this much. Now the issue is that we need a bunch of them rotated at about 10 degrees. So this is what we can do. We can use this slider at 9 and create a series of rotations based off of 360, which is the circle. So if we use the step to be 9.6, the count to be 360 divided by 9.6, that is how much we want to step by, 37.5. And then the count is going to be by how many, which is the same as this. So the step, the count, let's just go, actually this is going to be different. We can pick a different number. So if we want 20 different rotations, then we'll create 20 here and use 20 for the count. This gives us a step amount for the rotation, which right now it's at 18. So we need to increase this for this step to be lower. And then the series goes into the angle. So now what we've done is rotated it 28 times. And we just divide 360 by 28 to get the step that we rotate. So now we can increase this using the sliders. Or the other way to do this is disable the preview on the original. Lower this to, how many do we need? We'll just say 20. We can go to the length in the Y direction. And let's see if this kind of closes it off in the width. So those are the kind of cool things you can do with the parametric script. Now we can see what it looks like, but we need to do it in a cleaner way. So I'll use a custom preview and also a color picker. I'll hide the display. Let's move this here. So now you're seeing there's two of those twists. This is maybe too much twist. So if we just said 45 or 90, or actually 180 should be fine. Now you're seeing that it creates a gap in the middle. Okay, the reason why we did this is we want to progressively add on to the script in the same way that I did with my other tutorials where I do like the brick wall simplified and then get it crazy. Here we're going to save this and then move on to the next modification. So this is what that last one looks like with this rendered mode. Let's go back to our shaded mode, go back here, and we're going to be adding on to this. When looking at this, we can now disable the preview on all of this and go back to our twist. So we've twisted this relative to the center of the form. Now we're going to do the same thing, but using the center of this form, of the circle, we're going to move up the point the same height as the cup. So using this slider, we're creating a twist point. So we've got the base point, the point up here. Now we'll create a line segment starting at the center up to that point that we moved up. This creates, once again, a rotation axis that we can use. So let's do that. Let's rotate, or let's twist with this one using this center line. This will be the axis. And now let's go ahead and plug in the rest, this one, into the, here's the thing, that's the whole series of them. So we'll be just doing one. And this angle is going to be a specific number. So let's take this, copy it, and this is going to be twist form 2. Remember, the angle needs to be degrees. And we'll now change this. So this has been twisted to clockwise. We're going to do that again, but counterclockwise. So notice, all we need to do is take this, slide it down, tap Alt, and use a negative value. So now we've got 2 twists relative to the circle, one in the positive, one in the negative. Now what we need to do is disable the preview on the original and array this all the way around. So doing this, we're going to take this and array it. So we'll be taking this part that we had already rotated around. Now let's take a look at what that looks like. We've done one in this direction, and then we'll copy this and do the other in the other direction. Now we can plug both of these in, and we can take a look at what that looks like using custom preview. What this does is it has 2 twists, and so it creates another layer of transformations that we can add to this. So if we change this to 20, all of the components are going to change accordingly. And if we can change this back, see what happens. So here we have a little bit more of a twist. We can do 0 as well, and then 0, and they will go straight up. Or we can say 25 this way, creating a diagonal grid, and then this way 45, which twists it halfway. Or we can say 90, which rotates it halfway the other way. You can also go crazy and do 360. And raise the height for this. This does not look as good when you do too many rotations. Let's see what happens at 180. I think even at 90 looks better. That's the first twist, and now let's play around with this one. This is going to create density in the vertical because it rotates it more, and the more it rotates, the more intersections you will have. But it will also cause this transparency, which can be changed using this. At the end, we have the preview, and we can bake this to take a look at what that looks like. So let's disable preview of the script. Let's see if we can Boolean union this without too many issues. Nope, it failed. Flipping plane vertical to see what that looks like. Last thing I want to do to show you guys is this. Let's narrow down this. Let's see what that looks like. If the members are not as wide as we say they are, we get more of like a nest look. So if you want to download the script, you want to see how this was created, there are two versions, the original one and then this one that has the different modifications. If you come up with any ideas that you're like, hey, why don't you try this? Let me know in the comments below. Those are the things that I like to explore, or questions that you guys have that maybe I didn't come up with. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for being here. If you want to download the script, it's on the website. And I hope to see you on the next one.